Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's event. My name is Jenny. I'm one of the co-owners of Mysterious Galaxy, and I will be your brief host for this evening before I turn it over to these two lovely and dapperly dressed gentlemen tonight. Tonight's event is celebrating the release of Instinct by Jason Hough, which officially goes on sale tomorrow. Jason is the New York Times bestselling author of The Dire Earth Cycle and the near future spy thriller Zero World, and is a San Diego native. As I just learned, he's no longer local, but San Diego is in his heart. In conversation with Jason tonight is Kevin Hearne, who, as his bio states, hugs the heck out of trees and loves doggies, and pretending that he knows stuff about hockey, which, I agree with most of those things because I also don't understand hockey when I go to games. But both of these authors are dear friends to Mysterious Galaxy, and a quick couple hints before I turn it over to them, because you are not here to see me. As most of you have already found, on the right hand of your screen is the comment section where you are welcome to share any love for our authors or express excitement, etc., etc. There is, if you have any questions for authors, a button down below where it says ask a question. That is where you ask your questions. And that'll collect all the questions for our authors. And you can also upvote any questions that you see on there. If you want to make sure they get answered, it'll move them to the top of the screen, and it'll, give them a little bit of priority. If you haven't yet had a chance to purchase in either of these authors' books, sorry, I have a little stutter tonight, you can also find the link down below, and you can order a personalized book plate with your order of Jason's book. And with that, I will turn it over to these gentlemen, and I will see you once we're done. Good luck, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate that. Kevin, it's great to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. We're on opposite sides of the continent from each other now. We used to be a lot closer, so. But I hear that Seattle is getting vaguely warmer.
Yeah, it hit 60 today, so that's quite the milestone. It's funny because I've been doing these. I had this whole plan to do these pictures on Instagram of all the sort of creepy places around here that inspired parts of the book, and we usually have very foggy, kind of gloomy marches, and it was going to be perfect. And we've had, since the day I started this, it's been sunny and nice, like every single day, and it's driving me nuts. I actually want some gloomy weather, and we're not getting it.
Oh, well, I've been enjoying those pictures though, and
thanks.
It's actually really been something that has brought me back to what the book was about, because I read the book months ago. Mine was on the back cover. But I was getting all these pictures in my head of what the Pacific, this was a part of the Pacific Northwest I hadn't really seen yet, you know, because I've been to Seattle a few times, but, when I'm there, I'm like staying downtown. It's like me and the fish market, we're buddies, so that's not really, getting the experience of what it's like around Seattle. So, I mean, is this small town that Instinct is set in, is it supposed to be sort of kind of nearish Seattle, or is it like on the other side of the state, or what are we talking about?
I don't know if I have a specific place for the fictional town. What happened was I was just taking a drive one day out in the mountains around here, and I happened to go through this place called Silverton. And there was, I think one of the pictures I put on the Instagram today was this Masonic campground, and there was a store there that was selling Bigfoot merchandise and stuff. And it started, I had already had sort of the premise of the book, but I hadn't really picked where to set it yet. And suddenly like a bunch of stuff clicked in my head, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I made up a sort of fictional version of this place, because it was, I mean, literally it's like a gas station and that's it. So I made it like a, 600 or 700 person town, but it's probably the actual place where these things are is probably a good hour and a half drive out of downtown Seattle.
Okay.
So relatively close, but up in the Cascades,
nice.
And really beautiful country when it's nice. But of course, it's one of the neat things about setting this kind of book here is it's often very gloomy and rainy, and and all that. So
very spooky, that kind of thing. Okay, because I am really enjoying those photos on Instagram. For those of you,
I should probably put a link in the chat. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, for those of you who don't follow Jason already on Instagram, he's been posting creepy Pacific Northwest photos that are all inspirations for Instinct, and they're fabulous. I like the spookiness of them all. So there you go. And I was going to ask, one of the things I just really, really loved about Instinct was how you're starting off these chapters with these, with people talking about conspiracy theories, cell towers are going to get us, or whatever. There's all these different kinds of conspiracy theories that in some cases bear relationship to things that we've heard about, in popular media. In other cases, do not bear any relationship. But boy, do they sound conspiratorial. But I was just wondering, was that all, part of, how much did that influence you? What was going on in popular media, or was that just, where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I would hear these types of things either through, just people commenting on them, or occasionally they, unfortunately make it into like actual headlines and things. And I guess I just had this idea that it would be fun to set a conspiracy story in a town that's like so awash with conspiracy theories that it could hide in plain sight, basically.
Yeah.
So that was the idea.
I actually started looking forward, yes, I was there for the thrills and the action, but I was also looking forward to the next batshit, conspiracy theory at the beginning of the next chapter. Those
beginning of the chapter scenes were fun because this was the first thing I've written that's all in first person and present tense, and I wanted it to be that you only knew what the main character knows.
Yeah.
But that's which was cool, but it's super limiting. So I had this idea to, instead of going, okay, fine, I'll make it third person and add chapters from other characters and things like that. I just thought I would do these little overheard conversations in the bar.
Yeah.
And I think they're not maybe every chapter, but they're probably every 3 or 4 chapters. You get one of those. And they're all dialogue. It doesn't even say who's speaking. They were really fun to add in.
Yeah, they're total gems. And so so this whole thing, when I was first told about this, I'm like, a thriller set in a small town? Is that even a thing? Because usually when you hear about thrillers, you think about thrillers, you're like in these gigantic cities, and stakes are, nuclear war,
right.
Kill us all or something, weapons of mass destruction. And this was all right, how are you going to pull this off? I was actually kind of hooked from the beginning just on the premise of a small town thriller. How does that work? Where did that come from? I mean, you pulled it off. The stakes keep going up, and I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous how he's doing this. So where did that come from? I'm so impressed.
I mean, I think part of it was well, I don't want to spoil anything with the story itself, but I guess there's an element of it that requires a sort of constrained population, let's say. And so the smaller that was, I think the more, this is weird because it's maybe something that a lot of thriller authors don't necessarily do, maybe more in the police procedural side, but the science fiction author in me, the science part specifically, wanted to have an actual comprehensive explanation of what's going on. And even if it doesn't come through to the reader, I needed to know what the deal was. Yeah. And, I thought about if this is somewhere like Seattle or whatever, that's just way too many variables, too many people. You couldn't contain something like that. So I thought, how small can I go? And then, again, it was driving through that place, Silverton, and just going, oh, wait a second. What if I put it out here in the mountains where, there's only one road to get to this place? And in fact, I should mention this before, those Instagram pictures, the other thing I wanted to do was the actual place and some of the locations there, but the road to get there right now is closed because of snow, has been all winter. So I can't even go up there to get the pictures. I didn't think about that when I started the Instagram thing. So I'm hoping to go tomorrow. I think it might have opened yesterday or the day before, but what's that? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure I get this right. There's only one road into this town, this real life town, Silverton.
Yeah.
And it's been closed all winter. What do those people do?
Well, yeah, they have supplies. I mean, they can. I don't know. I don't have the road get closed in the book necessarily, but
Yeah.
just the idea that it's so isolated and can be so easily cut off if you were conspiring to do something. Like you could see how just park a truck across that and you don't have to worry about anybody coming up for a few days.
Plan. Find an isolated road and block it. They will be completely at my mercy. All right, so I love this. That it's it is something where the stakes begin, to kind of keep ratcheting up, and it starts out with this lovely sort of small town feel and humor, and you really start to dig these people, and then it becomes, what the heck? Hey, whoa, wait, that's weird. What's going on? And it's so brilliant how it's constructed. Thank you for the story. I should say thank you.
Well, thanks for reading it, and thanks for the lovely quote you gave me on the back. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. One thing I got to ask about though is the Bigfoot pastries. Now, that are described. There's a like a donut shop, kind of a bakery.
Now, it's not just a donut shop, because I think you named it, if I remember right. I was asking you on Signal one day. I needed to name so I had let me try to remember this now, because I don't remember which ones I actually went with in the book at the moment. But there was a flour shop.
Yeah.
And I think I was going to call it like all-purpose flour, but spelled like the plant. And then I had a bakery too, and you said Flower Child, I think, FLOUR. So
yeah, the Flower Child thing was I do remember that conversation. That was great. Because we're always having, for those of you who don't know, I mean, we just kind of talk back and forth on Signal every so often, check in with each other. How are you doing with your writing? That kind of a thing. And, we're always ready to drop whatever we're currently actually working on and start slinging puns at each other. And so that was one of the pun sessions that we had. Flower Child. So, but so they go in there though. Have you ever seen this Bigfoot pastry kind of gets?
No.
And I'm like, I want one.
No, it should be a thing. I think Nancy and I both like bear claw pastries, and it just made sense to me that if you had a pastry shop in this type of town, that you would make the Bigfoot version. And no, but I've never seen that. I've never actually seen one. It should be a thing. Maybe that'll be my next gig.
Yeah, I'm getting into baking. I don't know what you've
been. I know. Yeah.
Have you been doing anything like a little bit different or branching out during the pandemic?
Nancy's been doing all kinds of baking stuff with sourdough, and she's got her own little, starter yeast witherspoon, I think she calls it. Apparently you name these things. I didn't know that.
That's a great name. Yeast witherspoon. Okay. I didn't realize that the naming thing was a practice, but now that I know that it is, I kind of want to have one just to name it.
Right.
I'm fun for it. That's great. I love that kind of stuff. So what else has been, is this is sort of a standalone thriller, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the intent. I think one of the reviews already commented that it ends in such a way that there could be more stories here or whatever, but it's not like a continuing, this isn't ending a cliffhanger with, part 2 coming someday. It's definitely a standalone thing, but I suppose there could be more, Mary Whitaker, stories or whatever, or Silvertown, mysteries or whatever. But it's definitely a standalone thing.
She's great, just a great heroine, and I was completely rooting for her the whole time, and really enjoying her insights into people, and how she's figuring things out. And one of the things though that this is called instinct, and I was fascinated by that. I'd never thought of it before as what if you started messing around with people's instincts rather than dominating their will or something like that. So where did that idea come from? And is this a research thing that you did, or?
So the original idea for I guess the premise, and again, I'm doing my best to dance around too much spoilers, although nothing we've talked about isn't already said in the flap copy or whatever. But one of the brainstorming techniques I use when I'm just trying to think of stuff is you write down like sort of common phrases or common turns of phrase, and then you just try to play with them and think of different ways to, mess with them or whatever. And so I'd written a bunch of things down, and I was definitely going for like a thriller. I wanted to branch out into thrillers. And so I'd written down sort of a lot of terms and things. And one of the things I'd written down was killer instinct. And so when I came to that one and I was playing with it, I was trying to reverse it. And it sounds weird to say trying to reverse something, but it turns out there's a lot of different ways you can flip something around. And so one of the things, I think the first one I wrote down was like peaceful reason. So instead of killer, it was peaceful. Instead of instinct, it was reason. But that didn't really do anything for me. And then I thought of the more sort of obvious thing, which was just to reverse the two words, instinct, killer, instead of killer, instinct. And so then I started thinking, well, what happened if you started messing with people's instincts? And it did lead me into I didn't go too far into researching, like, is this actually possible? But I did go into, it turns out that instincts themselves were a lot more, there's just a lot more of them than you'd think. And there's actually like, scientists who've tried to like come up with lists of every single one and how they manifest and things like that. And I ended up finding, it was one of those things where like I could have researched it for years and never even scratched the surface. So I happened to find there's sort of this one list, I can't remember the name of it, but it's one scientist's like definitive list of what he thinks all the human instincts are. Wow. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going with that. These are the ones I'm going to play with. I'm not going to think about any others or little variations or whatever. I'm going to take this list. I'm going to apply them to each character and start messing with, how they work and things like that. So the rest was more science fictional, I guess, in terms of, the actual manipulation.
Yeah, and it's fascinating and scary at the same time, because it's like if you're messing around with instincts, we're living, at the top in our conscious minds. But and then if we do something and we don't have an explanation for it, then we might, post hoc say, oh, that was just instinctive. We didn't even think about it. And if somebody is able to affect that somehow, wow, they're messing with your root code, I mean, really
that's a perfect example. It's like the BIOS of a human being, to get into too nerdy computer talk, but it's like, there's so many science fiction novels and things like that talk about mind control and like completely like turning somebody into a robot that you can get to do exactly what you want. But I thought, the instinctual part of our brain is much simpler and smaller and more primal. And so what would happen if that was, the thing that was getting messed with? And that sort of led to the whole thing, really. That was the sort of premise side of it. And then driving through Silverton that one day was wait a second, I could set it somewhere like this. And I just sort of,
it's just brilliant. I'd never read anything like it, so I was swept up and really enjoyed the heck out of it. So that was great. But I'm not sure how the question things work. But I've got. Does everybody see at the bottom of their screen a little thing that says "Ask a Question"? And I've got a number there right now that says 1. Is that what everybody else has too?
I think that means there's one question. So people put your questions in there.
Yeah, if you guys have questions,
you can also like vote on them or something, but I'm happy to answer anything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And please ask more questions for us. And hello to everybody who's been saying hi in the chat. Thanks for comparing my beard to Patrick Rothfuss's. It will never be like that because I can't do the neck thing. I can't, like, it itches or whatever too much, and I just can't deal. So I will always shave that, but I'm letting, obviously during the pandemic you have plenty of chance to let things grow.
I matched you hat, but I can't match the beard.
Yeah. And I love your hat. That's amazing. We were having a small debate about what are these actually called, because there's different kinds, different variations. We needed a professional haberdasher.
That's right.
What we're wearing here. Yeah, love these things. They're great.
Hey, Kevin, since you're here, and I know lots of these people love your books too, what's your latest and what are you working on? Can you share anything?
Oh, yeah, I've got the Ink and Sigil series is what I'm kind of working with right now, and Ink and Sigil came out in paperback recently, and we have Paper and Blood coming out in August.
That's the sequel, right?
Sequel, yeah.
Okay.
And so, those are the things that are kind of currently on deck, and then what I'm working on now, but won't be done for a little while, is A Curse of Krakens, which is the third book in the epic fantasy Seven Kenning series.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I got going on. And what are what are you working on these days? And Instinct is obviously already basically done, so you're working on the next thing already.
Yeah. I've been working on a sequel to Zero World for off and on. It's been sort of my in between projects. That's what I work on, and so now that Instinct's wrapped up, I guess I'm sort of working on two things. I'm gathering my thoughts on some new ideas, which my agent and I will figure out what to do next once I have those done. But I'm taking my time because one of them is a really sort of complicated espionage thriller, and then so then I just when I in between projects I work on the Zero World sequel, which is I would say about 70%, 80% done. I'd hoped to be finished with it by now, but COVID completely messed up my writing schedule for the last year, so it's been tough to make a ton of progress. But yeah, I'm working on that, and having a lot of fun with it.
That's great. Yeah, when you have kids at home, it is tough to get stuff done. That's for sure. So
yeah, the kids have been here almost an entire year. They just went back to school full time a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So that was rough for sure.
Well, my kid's a bit older and in college, and so they've been home just being safe and all that because their classes are online and stuff like that. But it does get.
But
easier.
I know you and I are both the like I like a change of scenery once in a while when I'm writing. So if I'm sort of stuck, then I'll just grab my laptop and go to a cool little coffee shop or a restaurant or something and sit in the back corner and. Something about a change of scenery just helps me keep things rolling. But that's taken off the table for the last. I mean, just recently now you can start maybe going places again, and they've got every other table open. So that's an improvement for sure. But yeah, it was definitely an adjustment. And then the kids were here asking me questions and needing snacks and lunches and which honestly was awesome. You asked me before if there's anything I've gotten into like baking or something during the pandemic, and it's mostly just been spending a ton of time with my kids. And I coached my son's Rocket League team because they couldn't do sports, so we did a video game league for Rocket League, and that was a lot of fun to play that with him and all his friends.
Well, that's great. We got a bunch of questions now if you want to pop those up.
Yeah, let's pop into them for sure.
This is great. Let's see here. What media have you have you been consuming during the pandemic, be it movies, books, etc.?
Oh, wow. Well, so it's funny because I was worried you were going to ask me what I've been reading. So I'm actually I'm a judge for a book award for 2020, so it'll be announced in a few weeks, I think. But that's it's a really big one, and it's been a ton of work. And I think since September, I've had to read almost 300 hardcover submissions for that, and it's just, I mean, that's already 3 or 4 times as many books as I read in a year normally anyway. So to get through all those, I just haven't had time to read the stuff that I would just normally grab on my own. Although some of them would be definitely in that category, but it was, that kind of dominated my reading time. As far as media goes, I mean, the kids and I have been watching Mandalorian, which is awesome. I've been watching a British crime drama called Line of Duty lately, which I really enjoy. And then actually, I don't know if anyone in this sort of group would notice this, but a lot of the characters in Instinct their names are sort of a mashup of different British comedians' names. Because I really love British comedy, and one of the things that sort of got me through the last year was watching all these, stand-up comedians, but also their sort of panel shows where they kind of have a topic or a game show and they'll riff on it. And so I've been watching just a ton of those, and because it puts me in a good mood.
Great, yeah. They have little things like that here in Canada too, where they'll have a topic of debate or something, and two comedians go at it, and it's
Right.
kind of, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that question.
Yeah.
Let's see here. If someone wanted to get to know you better, what book would you recommend they read? That's such a weird way, like a cool way, but I'm just like, I've never been asked a question that way before.
Get to know me better.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I would say that is so tough to answer. Well, I don't know if this is the best answer, but it's the one that popped into my head. There's a murder mystery by Austin Grossman called You, Y-O-U. And it's a murder mystery set at a small game development studio in the 90s. And it's like, if anyone's ever worked in an office and then you watched the show The Office and thought about how much it matched your reality of what it was like. Well, this book, You, the little game studio that it's set in was so exactly on with the one that I worked at for 10 years of my life in the mid to late 90s that I like recommending it. People just, if nothing, it's a great book on its own, but to get that sort of insight of what it was like to work in the game industry back then, and when there's just you and like 10 other nerds just making a game, and I don't know, it's a really good book. It's really fun. So maybe that you'll learn a little bit about what my life was like back then from it.
That's cool. That's a cool thing. I would probably give somebody A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's a good choice.
I wound up, it was given to me that way. Somebody recommended it and said, look, you got to read this. And then I did, and it sort of changed my life and what it was like and everything like that. So yeah, I would probably do the same thing in case they hadn't already heard about it. But that's awesome.
Yeah, you can't go wrong there. That's great. Well, I can't wait for my kids to be old enough to, they're old enough to read it, but I want to be old enough to read it and actually sort of understand the humor of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really cool question. Thank you for whoever did that one. Appreciate it. If you were a dessert, what would you be and why? I'm curious.
Oh man, I mean the Bigfoot pastry. No, that's not me. Well, all I could say is my go-to. My birthday was a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and I love Black Forest cake. The chocolate with the cherry, and all that. That's my go-to cake. So I'll go with the Black Forest cake.
Is that the one that has the coconut in it, the shredded coconut, or is that German chocolate?
That's the German chocolate one, I think. Yeah, this is just it's like a dark chocolate cake. Nancy makes it with coffee in the cake batter, which just adds that little extra zing. That's really nice. And then it's got like the cherry, almost like cherry pie filling, but on top with the sort of whipped cream. So it's not too heavy on the frosting. It's more of a whipped cream around the cherries. But the combination of cherry and chocolate is like nirvana for me.
I would be bread pudding for obvious reasons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just great. Maybe without the raisins. No, let's leave out the raisins. Yeah, that's great. I'll have to, Kimberly's birthday is in a couple of days here. I'm going to have to maybe make her a Black Forest chocolate cake.
Oh, you should.
We're supposed to say happy birthday to Nadine.
That's right. Nadine, happy birthday.
Nadine. I think it's Wednesday that it's going to be happening. So very happy birthday to you. That's great.
Yeah, so much.
The correct answer is Boston cream pie. Yeah, that's cool.
Boston cream pie is pretty good.
Yeah, that's very good stuff. So we have a question about a genre switch. Was there a reason why you wanted to try thrillers out?
Well, I guess all I could say is that I've always enjoyed reading lots of different genres, not just science fiction, but fantasy and thrillers and, all kinds of things. And so when I started writing, I had ideas for lots of different stuff. And the Darwin Elevator happened to be the first thing that got, traction and a publisher and all that. But I told my agent, Sarah, like right off the bat, I said, as soon as it's possible, if we find an opportunity for me to branch out to something other than just science fiction, because I guess what I was worried about, and I don't know how true of a worry this actually is, but I didn't want to get so far into science fiction that that was the only thing I could do. Like, even if I wanted to do something else, publishers would just be like, nope, you're a science fiction author, that's your brand, sorry, you can't, we're not taking anything else. And so, I don't know, I guess it happened fairly quickly, but yeah, my editor was changing publishing houses, and he was in a position where he was had a lot more freedom in what he could acquire. So Instinct came out of a breakfast at San Diego Comic-Con he and I had at Hash House, for all you San Diegans who are in here, my favorite breakfast joint. I pitched him like 6 different ideas that were all over the map in terms of genre and stuff. There was some science fiction and other things. And Instinct was the one he immediately said, that's the one, let's do that. And I was like, really? So it was, and then there was the temptation, I think, maybe to make it a little bit more sci-fi a few times, but we managed to make it a little bit more true. And, I don't know where it'll get shelved by bookstores, because they'll see my other books in science fiction and maybe just stick it there. But hopefully it's in the mystery/thriller section.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I wound up just calling the bookstore. I never got a chance to see it on the shelf because I called ahead, hey, can you put aside Instinct for me? They're like, yes, it'll be behind the register for you. So I never even really went far into the bookstore to go pick it up. I just went and grabbed it. And by the way, you guys, it looks like this. This is it. Oh,
yeah, they did such a great job on the cover.
Not backwards, I guess. You're probably seeing a mirror image, aren't you?
No, it looks good. It looks right.
You all right? Okay, cool.
Yep.
And then on the back, there's wonderful blurbs here from Pierce Brown and Scott Sigler, another San Diego dude. And then I'm down there too. Fantastic stuff. So I hope you guys.
Speaking of, since you mentioned it, I have another event like this on Wednesday with University Bookstore up here in Seattle that Pierce Brown will join me for.
Oh, cool.
And I know that originally they had it that you had to buy the book to attend, but they've since I talked to them and I'm like, can we just make it fun for everybody? And I'd love, Pierce's fans to be able to join and get to meet me without having to, having a barrier to entry, I guess. So anyway, I hope you all will join me for that as well. You have to go on, look on my Facebook or Twitter, and you'll see a link to register for that. It's Wednesday night.
All right. So like Kimmer's question also got answered, as well as Patrick's. Then we have favorite question. I'm always interested in hearing. Apparently we're going to read that. I'm sorry. So what's your process? Do you have writing goals, superstitions, routines?
My process is sort of ever evolving, but I've always been an outliner. And, when I started out with the Darwin Elevator, and I didn't really know what I was doing. So my outline for that was massive. It was, you'll appreciate this as a writer, but it was about 10,000 words just for the outline, which is like, a fifth of a small book. But what I've sort of since gravitated towards is a much simpler outline that's maybe only, a few words per chapter. And so I also, because it's so simple now, it's only a page or two, I can play with it much more easily and get something more what I like. So that I mentioned earlier that I'm sort of trying to plot this complicated espionage thriller right now. And I must be on my 100th version of the outline for it at this point, because I keep thinking of different ways to do it and like a better, twist here. And, then I'll have bits that I like from one and I didn't use in another one, and I'll start thinking about how I can merge them and everything. Yeah. But then when I'm actually writing, it's just, it's mainly, I write in the mornings almost all the time, pretty much every day. I mean, you and I are on Signal most days, just checking in with how things are going.
Yeah.
And it's funny how motivating that is, because I never want to have an answer that, I didn't do anything today. I always want to be able to say I did something. Yeah. And I know you will hold me to it. So
that's right. That's very good. I really enjoy that too. The check-ins on Signal and having some way to have a little bit of accountability for getting some stuff done, because if we do just sit around and binge watch a TV show or whatever, nobody's going to come yell at us necessarily for it. We do have to self-motivate and get that done. So yeah, that's cool. I'm also an outliner. My outlines can get pretty involved as well, but I never feel that I have to stick to them.
I think for me, it's like I outline more to get it straight in my head.
Yeah.
Because I very rarely look at them once I actually start writing. Like by then I've done it so many times that I kind of already know.
Yeah.
And I usually only look at it if I'm like stuck or I've written myself in a little bit of a corner. I'm going, wait a second, does this even match what I outlined? And then I can go back and look and go, oh, that's right, he's supposed to meet him there and do that and whatever. And that'll get me back on track. But it's one of those things where it's more of just the repetition of working through it. It's just to, sort the idea out. I'm always paranoid of having an idea that's purely in my head. And then a month later, I won't even remember what it was. So I have these little data banks of ideas that I just keep, and Killer Instinct was, one of the things sitting in there that sparked the whole reversal thing I talked about.
Once you have your outline done, do you go and write it linearly from beginning to end, or do you skip around?
I do it linearly.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah. I've tried the other way, but I think there's there's this temptation to do like the scenes that seem like the most fun or whatever. And I think that, I don't know if this is true because I've never tried it the other way, but I feel like if I'm neglecting certain areas, then there's probably a reason why, like that part hasn't been sufficiently plotted, or it should be made interesting so that I do want to write it. And so I think if I write linearly, it sort of forces me to get through those. And I think it also helps me sort of work out certain issues as I go, instead of, I suppose if I wrote again, I haven't done it the other way, so I don't know, but I feel like if I wrote a chapter in the last quarter of the book early, that I would feel like locked into that when I'm writing earlier stuff. And I want to be able to sort of meander a little bit for my outline or whatever. And I don't want to get too locked in. I don't know.
No, I get it. I'm weird that way, where I've decided, because a lot of people do exactly what you're doing. Here's an outline, and now I will write from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But I have found that I am able to work non-linearly. So
that's great. Yeah.
I do try to start at the beginning, and I'll go as far as I can. But if I'm like having a day where I'm really stuck on chapter 5, whatever, but wow, chapter 8 looks like a good time, I will go ahead and write chapter 8, because that means I've made progress towards the end and I'm not just sitting there frustrated and staring. And sometimes I find that unlocks for me the problem that I was having with chapter 5, that I've got to, because I've developed something going on with that character or whatever, I'm able to go back and finish 5 and figure out what was wrong with it or why I was blocked.
Yeah.
I've done that over the years, and so it means that no book is written the same way twice. It's always different. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I probably will try this at some point. And in fact, now that you're mentioning that, I think maybe I sort of have with the Zero World sequel, because I wrote originally I thought it was just one plot line all the way through, and I had written a good chunk of that. And then later I decided that I needed to have 2 different things going on in different areas, and then they'll merge. Mm-hmm. And so I went back and started writing those chapters and like interleaving them. And so I almost accidentally, I guess, wrote them out of order. But it's never been a conscious choice. So yeah, I probably will try at some point. But I love that there's no right answer to this, and I love that it's constantly evolving. I think that this whole thing, there's always this talk between authors about writing from an outline versus just pantsing it. And the crux of it to me always seems to be that everybody becomes an outliner once they have a deadline.
Yeah.
You can't just go, oh, I wrote 50,000 words and it was all garbage and now I'm going to start over.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that when I wrote half a page of outline and it was all garbage.
Yeah.
Figure it out there. But writing them really tersely, the outlines really tersely, has helped me still have fun with actually writing the chapters, because I haven't made every single decision up front. I'm, as long as I get to that little one sentence outline I did for that chapter, which I always try to outline what the end of the chapter is.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gives me all the freedom I want on how I get there. So keeps it fun.
Yeah, which is the point. You want to have fun. If you're not having fun writing it, then maybe folks won't have fun reading it. That's kind of the way I know whether I'm doing something good or not is if I'm having fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I hope that answered the question. We were just like talking for a little while there. Either of us considering writing middle grade or young adult? Sure, someday maybe.
Yeah, it hasn't been super high on my radar, but I've always had this like little nagging thing in the back of my head that it would be nice to have written something or write something that my kids could read. But I feel like they're getting older faster than I'm able to write new books, so they'll be able to read my current stuff, pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
In fact, they've read your whole series, so they're from a maturity standpoint, they're ready, I think.
Well, tell them I said hi, buddy.
I will. Yeah. They love that I know you. They think it's like they're more starstruck by that than anything.
Well, I'm glad that you got like a cool dad point there. Whatever I could do to help you out. Good question here from Lindsay Graves. When you were a new writer writing your first book with no deadlines, how were you able to find the time and discipline to actually complete it?
Yeah, that is the critical thing. I think I've talked about this at previous book events. I'm sorry if this is ground I've covered in the past, but really briefly, I meandered for like 4 or 5 years on random ideas and never got more than a few chapters written. And it wasn't until I tried National Novel Writing Month in 2007, I think, 2008, somewhere in there, where I sort of realized the benefit of just writing a chunk every single day, and that the amount you have to write in that is faster even than the pace I go at now professionally. So if you can accomplish that, even if you can get halfway, you're writing as much as regular authors write. And it's just one of those things where once you do it, that quantity and that amount of time, by the end of that month, it's just become a habit that you can't not do. Yeah. And most of the people I know who have completed it have continued writing, pretty good amounts after that. And then the other thing for me was just, I think with all the books we've both written over the last decade or so, that having a publisher who's waiting for it and a deadline is like a pretty strong motivator. And so that's hard to get when you're just as a hobbyist. And so the way I was able to accomplish that was simply by telling friends of mine that I was doing it, so that they would keep asking me every time they saw me, hey, when can I read that book you're writing? And again, it kind of comes back to what I mentioned earlier, that I don't want to have the answer. Like when you ask me in the morning, how's your writing going this morning or whatever, I don't want to say, oh, I'm just sitting here on the couch watching TV. So I didn't want to not be able to say that I hadn't made progress when my friends asked me how it was going. And it was like it was a self-imposed deadline, but it did the job.
Yeah. I wrote for 20 years, poorly, and didn't get published until I was 39. So I had a day job, I was an English teacher, and I would be setting aside after dinner about an hour or sometimes 90 minutes after dinner, where I would allow myself time to work on this thing that I wanted to work on, but then I had to get back to doing lesson plans and grading papers and all that kind of stuff. But by doing just an hour of intense stuff or 90 minutes or whatever, you're getting 500 to 1,000 words or so done every day, or whatever you can manage is fine. And over time that gets you a novel. And so my first book took me 11 months working, little chunks of time that I could manage. And then occasionally you would get a break from school and you could work more on it if you want. But so my first book took a longer time because, we didn't have a deadline. My second book was, 5.5 months versus 11 months. So, having a deadline and having a contract where, you don't get paid until you finish, that's really motivating, So, but my first 5 books were all written while I still had a full-time job. So
same. My first 3 were same thing.
You got to carve.
And that was where I realized that all of my preconceived notions about the ideal writing conditions and those kinds of things just completely out the window. You just had to get it done. So I still had a full-time job. I was up at 4:30 every morning sitting in Starbucks. I had to get 1,000 words a day every day to get that book done in 6 months. I think once you do that one time, you're good. You can do that. It's never easy. But it becomes a habit.
Yeah, and once you do complete a novel, you could do it, and you could do it again, and maybe do it better, and so on and so forth. You'll improve. I think we've got maybe time for maybe another question or two, and then we got to probably wrap it up here. But as a software dude, have you ever tried using Trello or other agile-oriented apps? I don't know if I'm saying that right. As a way to outline your novels.
I've never used those, but I do use a mind mapping tool, which I know is similar to sort of flow charting a program or source code. But I haven't tried using Trello or anything like that. No, I use one called, it's got a corny name. I think it's iThoughts or something like that. But I've tried every mind mapping tool out there. And that's the only one that, the funny thing is I need one that has no features. I need to be able to make bubbles with words in them and then connect them super quickly. And then just tab to make a child one or enter to make a sibling, and I can outline a whole thing, and I can do probably 2 or 3 outlines of a story idea per day using that, and that's the one where I do just tons of different versions of it until I start zeroing in on one I like.
That's cool.
Great question.
Yeah, how much garbage do the two of you toss out from your writings?
Not a ton. I mean. There's always stuff. The one thing that I think I want to say every single book now, I think I've almost always chucked my first chapter and rewritten it from scratch once the book was done. Yeah. There's something about my first chapter where I still haven't really figured out where to start the story. And then this happened with Darwin Elevator. It's happened with everything. And it comes down to this conversation with my editor where there's certain things that aren't working or whatever. And in my editor's mind, or in my agent Sarah's mind, when I first got on board with her for the Darwin Elevator, we were talking about all these issues, and I realized, wait a second, we can solve all of this stuff if we just ditch chapter 1 and do it and start it in a different place where we can get everything on the right track from the get-go. And so that's sort of become a thing of mine to just. Which is weird now because I almost don't even want to write chapter 1 in the first draft because I know it's going to go. But you have to start it somewhere.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then in this book, I think again, getting back to my sort of science fiction brain, I wanted to have explanations for things, and so I had a lot of backstory about everything that was going on and sort of the actual events and how it got there. I never actually wrote any of that, but I did have a lot of it sort of in my initial outline and synopsis. And then when my editor and I talked about it, he was like, no, we don't need to do any of that. It should be mysterious for a reason, Jason. You don't have to explain. But I needed to know in my head,
You have to know. So I'm going to wrap up with one last question here from Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Nicest compliment on one of your books you've ever received?
What was that?
Yeah, what's one of the nicest compliments on one of your books that you've ever received from anyone?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a good question.
It really is. I mean, I've had a couple of authors now, and I don't know if I can name names yet because I don't know where they're at in their publication thing, but I've had a few people say that they started writing because of how much they like my books, which I thought was great because I basically started writing after reading John Scalzi's books, and it just sort of got me into it. So I thought that was neat to sort of have that come full circle. But I did, and I hate to name drop or whatever, but Zero World is a weird thing for me because it's my favorite thing of mine that I've written, but it had the least success of anything I've written as a book, but it's had the most attention on the film and television side. Even right now, it's still, we just got a director who signed on the other day he's going to write a script or something. And I don't know, I can't talk about that, but when it originally got a producer involved, when it first came out, he sent it out to a bunch of directors and then was telling me what their sort of responses were. And so my sort of favorite compliment, I guess, from that was, and this is just what this producer told me, so I've never got confirmation of this, but he said that Christopher Nolan had really enjoyed the book, but he passed on optioning it because it was too similar to something else he was working on. And I think Tenet just came out last year, and I haven't actually seen it yet, but I know it's a futuristic spy thing, and so I thought, maybe but the fact that he liked it and all that was really cool to hear.
That was really cool.
I just ran over my microphone cable.
No worries. I think that I've had several people from different situations pass an email on to me saying that the Iron Druid Chronicles helped them get through a tough time, like it was something rough that they were going through. Maybe they had a relative in the hospital, or I got a couple of letters from people overseas deployed there and were having a rough go of it, of course. But so those things have always been the nicest, that I was able to help somebody ease their passage through the world with a story. So that was nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Totally awesome.
So very cool. I'm hoping that I don't think we got to everybody's question, and I apologize if we didn't get to yours. But you can always reach out to me or Jason. We're very cool about writing back on emails or anything like that. So please feel free to email either one of us if you'd like. And I hope you guys will check out Instinct, because it's fantastic. And grab yourself a pre-order, or order it, I should say, from Mysterious Galaxy here, and get a personalized bookplate from Jason.
Well, thank you guys. That was such a lovely note to end on, and positive compliments. I love it when people share compliments that they've gotten. I think it's just a nice time usually. And yes, the pre-order link is still down below. It is working now. It was hidden, which is my fault, but I fixed it. So it is now more visible, and I apologize for that when I was referencing it earlier and it was not seen. So my bad. Thank you both for such a wonderful event. It was great to hear you talk with one another. Clearly you're great friends. There was a lot of support in the comments throughout, so feel free to take a look at that as well. But I know it's getting late for Kevin, so we are going to close it up. So thank you both. Virtual round of applause. Many, many thanks. Congratulations. And yeah, congratulations on Instinct. And thank you to all our lovely audience members for their questions.
I see somebody asking, by the way, if the doors at Mysterious Galaxy are open yet. Are you?
They are not. However, hopefully we have plans. Okay. That's what we'll say for now. So they are not quite open, but we are kind of working on making sure, setting up all the safety precautions to figure something out. So hopefully we'll be.
Can I ask you a question? You guys are still shipping internationally, right?
Yes, we are still shipping internationally. There's a pause right now with the UK because of VAT issues, because of Brexit, which is a whole thing. But we are still shipping internationally. So yeah, anywhere in the world we can get the book to you, we will, as soon as our VAT gets approved, which I know is probably like boring behind the scenes stuff, but
awesome. Thank you.
Dealing with that. Yeah. So everything, you can find both of these authors' books through our website. You can find, all of their recommendations and more. I believe Nick linked everything in the comments to what you were.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, I saw that.
So feel free to check them out. And as always, let us know if you have any questions, or if anyone needs recommendations. We are here to help. And hopefully we will be seeing people soon. So
yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it. And Kevin, thanks again for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, Mysterious Galaxy, as always.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you guys. And again, congratulations on tomorrow.
Thanks very much.
And everybody have a lovely night.
All right. Bye.